Hi everyone, welcome back to the studio. I'm out here in Sydney again. We're going back and forth. We're going to continue some of our Alla Prima studies, and I promised some of you some of the birds. Now, with the bird challenge that I did earlier, matter of fact, I just framed up the kookaburra here to go up into the gallery. I really like him with that kind of a goldish kind of color frame worked into some burnt umber and stuff. It really came out kind of nice. And he'll be going up there. But with the bird challenge, the playlist that I have, the bird challenge, I did a lot of the birds acrylic, pure acrylic, so you can look at some of those techniques. Today I'm going to do the Alla Prima, which means I'm going to come back out here. I'm going to use my standard palette that I have out here, my Hansa yellow, Darya light yellow, yellow oxide, naphthol red light, burnt sienna, pine green, phthalo blue, red violet, quinacridone violet, and white. This is the Derivan Matisse open medium, which I use for a lot of the Alla Prima. This is a little cap of my extender medium, which is the Heritage Multimedia Extender Medium. I've explained to you what the differences are. This is really thin, this is thicker, and it contains actually binder in it, glue that holds the paint together. So I use this for thin applications, and I use this for slightly thicker applications. All right? Okay, let's get going. I have a board here that's about 11 by 11, and I found this little Chestnut-backed Chickadee that I really liked, and I'm going to paint him into here with some kind of maybe some bluish kind of blossoms. I usually pick out a color of the bird, and he has the chestnut, which is going to be some burnt sienna and some Darya light yellow. So it's kind of an orange, and so when I have that kind of orange, I'll pick, when I pick flowers and something to do in there, I pick a complementary color, so somewhere around the blues or blue-violet, somewhere around there, I'll put a few of those in that will contrast the bird. And, it's kind of, the bird's going to be kind of our subject matter of the painting, so we want to contrast him. So, and I base coated the board just the titanium white with a little bit of yellow oxide, and you can add a little tiny bit of the carbon black or make yourself a gray. And a beautiful gray on this palette comes from blue and burnt sienna, and that any kind of gray will work there. So I'm going to take my 3/4 inch fusion flat here, which you see me use a lot, which is one of my favorite brushes. I'll put some extender medium in it here. And let's just break up our backgrounds and stuff for right now. So what I'm going to do is basically make some gray, and I'll take some of that burnt sienna that is going to be used in the bird here, and some of the phthalo blue. We'll add some white to it, and see these beautiful grays. See, it makes just a beautiful gray that can go on here right away. So I'll have that base, and I'll lighten it up, and we'll thin it out slightly with the extender medium, and I'm going to work some of these colors. Now see, it's going to get some of that slightly different, a little burnt sienna into it. I like those kind of colors. Sometimes you see me a lot put blue and everything into the background, but if I'm going to have a lot of blue flowers and stuff, I may not want to have so much blue in the background. Now, we've talked about this before in painting birds, that he's kind of angled this way, and I just started to make this little mistake. Actually, I wanted to kind of show you what to do. I just started a habit. But if he's angled this way, I don't want to angle my background, any of my background movement this way, because it'll blend in. I want to use a contrasting movement. And I always follow the Dutch masters, the Dutch Golden Age painters, and they put in that St. Andrew's cross, which is a crossing of their subject matter. And so if he's going this way, this is going this way. And those of you, I learned a lot in all the years I studied and recreated Dutch master paintings. And they took a while, boy, I tell you. But I learned a lot from them. And so one of the things is I always remember that. So I've got a little bit of that movement in. I can have some other colors in there that might be kind of fun, like a little bit of a violet or something in here. And we can just kind of push some of these colors in here and blur them into we want to kind of push the color in and blur them into our background. We don't want these colors very thick, so I'm using the extender medium. I don't want to have too much stuff going on here. I just want to get some more movement and interest and stuff here into the background here. I'm a big advocate of contemporary styles of using these kinds of colors into the background. Let's add just a bit of this. Now see, if I'm going to do some blue flowers, I can also take this with the violets and some of these lighter colors, and I can just start modeling some of these colors up into these areas here where blue flowers, and we'll give the suggestion of the blues back up here. So, you know, you can just kind of model some of those around. I'm not real sure, you know, what kind of flowers I'll be doing here. I've done these kind of things so many times, so I'm not too worried about it. But, you know, it's something that I like to, a lot of times, not all the time, but I like to read my subject matter, which of course is the Chestnut-backed Chickadee here. And then I kind of sketched up a little bit of the idea of some flowers. I never really followed that, but it just kind of, I read off of the chickadee. He is going to be the subject of it, of the whole thing. So I want to be able to follow that. Now let's just take some of this off here with some movement strokes. So I like to take it off to a side with some movement strokes. Let's add a little bit more before we get going here. Contrast. I'm going to take some pine green and some burnt sienna, and I'm going to add some of that in here as just, and see, I use different parts of my brush, and you got to get brave here. You know, you're not going to be able to copy what I do, and you know, maybe I'll change what I'm doing here, but you just got to get brave, and you got to put in some color here. And you can use your paper towel and soften and push some of that movement. Paper towel leaves some streaks. Your fingers will soften it out. See that? And so as I leave some of my center, this is going to be my center of interest area here. So I want some of this nice contrast here. I love the, you know, I love the power of the strokes and color movement. Stick it, you know, just kind of stab it. Like I said in that one other video, Alla Prima, we call it stab art. We just kind of stab at it here of what we're doing here. And yeah, it's put a few of those colors around. So you see just a bit of that around. So that's going to, and you can see immediately it's pulling that, all that interest here. And maybe we take a little bit more of a burnt sienna, powerful boom right up through here, because that's going to be a lot of burnt sienna into the bird as well. So we'll look for some of that. All right. Nice and soft through here. That's the real ticket here. I might want to lighten up, and I'll just use my dirty colors in the brush here. Might even want to lighten this up just a bit more. The chickadee will play against this light into this area, like I did with the other birds in the bird challenge. Those of you that like to paint the birds with me, and I paint all different kinds of birds, from birds of prey to, you know, and I had requests to do an Australian bird, so I did the kookaburra here, and he was really a lot of fun. I mean, I used to spend a lot of time vacationing down in Australia and feeding the kookaburras all my fishing bait, but I used to have a lot of good times with them. But he came out kind of fun too, and like I say, he's in the challenge if you want to go paint him. He looked just great. But I do a lot of birds of prey. I do a lot of things, and you know, they're really fun techniques, and I use different ones. That's the thing, is I use different ones. Now look at this setup. Isn't that great with that powerful of that color? Now this stops out here just a little bit. I don't always like that, so let's just put a mark or two. And sometimes, you know, a good, if I was, you know, painting a larger painting, sometimes we would take a mark like that, and if we put in a strong horizontal, just to give you a little information like this, see how that kind of stops your eye from moving that way a little bit? So someone, you know, contemporary artist will use some of their backgrounds and stuff like that to put that stop in there, you know. And I learned, you know, years and years and years ago, back in the early 70s in landscapes with Bill Alexander, he would always put mighty tree in on the sides of it. And Bob Ross does the same thing. He puts mighty tree on the sides of his landscape that forces the viewer's eye into. It stops your horizontal movement, forces you in, gives you more depth, you know, through the painting there too. So that's something to consider. Kind of fun there to do that. Now, for most of the Alla Prima, I'm going to start out the little chickadee here with my little number 4 fusion flat here. And I'm going to kind of block in some of the areas, and I'm going to paint him with the open medium. So he'll be a little bit thicker. and he'll have a little more character to the coloring and the thickness of the coloring than what I have here in these colors that are here. So let's come in. Let's put in some open medium. Let's go in and immediately go into some of this burnt sienna, Darulite yellow, mostly Darulite yellow, actually a little burnt sienna, and we'll start in some of the back, his mantle. This is called his mantle, and I'm just going to put in this kind of short, choppy little strokes here, and then I'll pick up a little more burnt sienna, and I'll come this way, short, choppy little strokes, and I'll leave some of that streaks and stuff there. That's going to be the modeling that'll happen into him. So we'll put some of that. I'm going to put a stroke, even though he's got a real dark head. We'll put a bit of this in. We'll paint some of this out here, and I will sometimes just lose the edge. So I just run my finger there to lose that edge to kind of keep him soft. And because I'm not sure yet exactly what I'm going to do, so I'm very careful of my edges, what we call the edges of our painting here. I'm going to put in just a bit more burnt sienna. That's going to pull him a little bit more this way here. Take some of that. I'll just whisper a little bit of this color around in some other areas here. But Darulite yellow and burnt sienna. Darulite yellow is a semi-transparent. Burnt sienna is semi-transparent, but the two work together to make some beautiful colors here. And I'm just going to push some of this around right up in here, and that'll be good. Might want some of that, and even some of that little gray to tone that down, get a little different coloring in there. That's nice here. Always work, some of your background colors, that gives you the, takes away some of the intensity of the color, gives it that atmospheric kind of perspective that a landscape gets. Yeah, you can do this in small little paintings. You can use the same concepts of your landscapes in the same paintings as you do with your birds and stuff like that. Okay, so that gets that guy in here. I'm just going to whisper a little bit of that into some of the other colors. I kind of wiped out his tail I sketched, so I'll be doing that again. And his wings, I'll be doing that again. Sometimes I always ask myself, why the heck did I sketch so much? Because I just painted out. But anyway, let's get back to some gray here. Burnt sienna, or blue here. We'll get this nice gray, darker gray, and that's a good dark color for him. Let's get that up and around his eye here. And see, it's kind of warm with that nice burnt sienna. And even though I'm using my brush, I'm tapping in small movements here that kind of fit with what I want to do with the bird. So I want this little darker area and some lighter tones to come up over here. So I'm just going to keep that around here. But I follow the movement of the bird here. And I want to watch my edges. I want to kind of blur. I do what I call blur it out. See how I blur? And that's what I like about an Alla Prima. When I keep that wet, I'll blur it out. So I'll do a lot of blurring of the painting here. And so I'll pull some of the dark up in here. Change the tone. Maybe a little more blue, so it's a little different. Then a little more burnt sienna. I like to tap many times with all different kinds of colors. We'll put a little bit up towards his mantle and down towards his breast area. And we'll blur out just a bit, a few areas. Just adds more interest. Okay, now let's just take some of our gray here, right into this. And we'll make a nice gray, a little darker gray. And we'll use this to just kind of, these are his big main primary flight feathers right here. And we'll add more colors and stuff to it, but we'll put those on there. These will pull this way, so I want to give some nice pulls this way here. So these kind of curve around, these pull flat like that. Use the flat of your brush. I like to use different parts of my brush. Sometimes I'll use the chisel to give one look so you can get some streaks into it. Sometimes the flat to make it a little softer. I like that variation. Let's put a bit of this right down in there. And even a bit of this up into this white area, which will help make the undertone of some of the whites that we're going to add on to him. Okay? All right. Let's get into some of that white. First, let's start with a low white. So I'll take this down. Now, when you start adding a new pigment, always add that open medium to it, or else it's going to dry on you like an acrylic. Okay? So we'll get that down here, and we'll start moving in some of these lights here. We'll get a bit more light here, a bit lighter, and just kind of stroke, and I kind of hit and lift. So I don't want to have it too opaque. I want to leave this kind of mottled in there right now. Okay, we'll have a bit of this coming up his breast area here, just a bit. And then we'll pick up even more, get this all a little bit lighter here. And we'll start out with it maybe around a value 7 or so here. And we'll kind of tap some of this in right up here, right up towards his beak, and then down here. Let it just kind of lift the pressure on your brush so these just kind of incorporate together, streak kind of together there like that. And so you can see as I'm blocking him in, when I block him in with Alla Prima, I do it, they're really kind of soft. And then I can come in and add more details and stuff like that later. And I can come in, like even right now, pick up a little bit more white. If I really want to give some angles to this, or the angle of his shoulder here, down like that, and just kind of leave those streaks in there like that, see? And those will be, and I'll build up on top of that, but I can kind of see the structure of him that way. Maybe take, sometimes I do this with a round, a lot of the times I do it with my small flat like this because I like the lines. If I'm putting in the feather lines, the dividing lines of his feathers, I like to do it with the chisel of a flat as opposed to the point of a round, because the chisel of the flat is softer and not as precise. And the round sometimes can put little round textures in there, which doesn't work always with what you're trying to do with your birds. So I always like to do that. Even I will just kind of round around a bit here as I put in these coming in this way here. And maybe streak a bit of the light feathering from that one. Got a lot of details that you can put in here, but it's kind of fun. When you're Alla Prima and you're wet and wet, it's kind of fun painting a bird too. Different ways. There's different ways, whether you're acrylic or Alla Prima, painting acrylic Alla Prima with the birds. I'll use different techniques, different ways. Let's tap a little bit heavier here, just a bit. Get some movement in there. Now, I'm not going to do a lot of the movement. I used to hear, now, there's some of the birds that I have on the channel. If you go back and look at the titmouse, I do a real painterly titmouse. She's one of my favorite birds I have out in Pennsylvania. And I do a real painterly where I do almost all the bird with the number 4. And it makes it more what I call painterly because you see more strokes in it. And then you'll see other birds that I'll do a lot with the number 4 round. This is my favorite bird painting brush, the Fusion brush, number 4 round, has a nice point, but I use it in a backward stroke to make feathers. So I can do a lot of detail, a lot of working on it, and it's one of my favorite brushes by far. I'm going to take some of this gray with it and just come up here and tap right around the eye where I'm going to put the eye in. That's just going to put some, some feathers in there, in that particular eye area there. And I'm going to try to come in just a little closer here. There we go. So you can see that. And let's go with a violet. Now violet, blue, violet, and a touch of your green here is it's a nice dirty, tertiary, dark color. And I'm going to tap that in. Now I'm also going to use some burnt sienna. Those of you who watch a lot of my birds notice I always do a little burnt sienna in the eyes now. I didn't for many years, and now I do as well because I like that little bit of warmth. And you only see it when you're looking up real close, but I like to put a little burnt sienna in there, okay? And let's take some of this dark that we have here. And this is the stroke I like to use. I push it down and lift it up here to with the number 4 to push in some of that real dark right in there. Let's put some of that medium in here. And let's just add a few little strokes. I'm going to do some light strokes over this. A few little bits right in there. That'll work kind of nice. Maybe a touch or two in here, just little. So I push a bit of it into the feathers here. Let's add a bit of burnt sienna to that, which is going to warm that dark. Add some of this medium here. Let's just pull in and out here a bit. And you can push with your finger to get a few streaks of that color. I don't want to stroke it too many. If you stroke it too many times, you'll lose the actual streaking of it. I don't know if you can hear that. That's my phone going off in the room, which it's 1 o'clock here, which is probably my wife. So I'll call her in a minute, which I might paint even faster in just a moment here. But anyway, so I'll come back in here. I'm going to make a lighter gray here, okay? And you can see that in the bird photo and stuff that we have. Lighter gray for his beak. Usually I put a little bit lighter gray on the top and then a little darker color to the bottom. That helps distinguish the two parts of the beak. And then I'll come back sometimes and put just a little shine. It all depends on how much time I'm going to put into a bird in detailing it and stuff. The little chickadee has a real pointed little beak, and I like to just streak a few little colors into that. But I like to put a little shine, almost like a little shine up here onto the top part, right up there. Sometimes I spend a lot of time, sometimes just a few moments in painting them. Let's put a little bit more dark right in there. Okay, now he's going to have some of this dark. I usually leave a little bit of the light right around the edge of the eye for the eye ring. And I'll paint out some of that so I have just enough light to help show some of his eye. I'll use a gray, not a pure white, but a gray as a bit of a shine right up there onto the eye. And if I get that shine too big, which I normally do, this one isn't too bad, but I'll just tap into it with a little dark. I take the shine down, and it doesn't even look like I did anything there, but I'll take the shine down just a bit there, just like that. Now, and the other thing is, you'll notice that I'm not painting with any water. When I paint with Alla Prima, I don't paint any water, because what you do, and even if you go rinse your brush, you're introducing the fastest drying product in all of acrylics, which is water, okay? So I stay out of it. I stay out of the water completely. So let's come back here. Let's take some of this and let's just gray all of this back up here. This makes all beautiful grays that'll work in here, working some of the colors into his head. And I'll use this little reversing stroke here to put in some shape following kind of strokes and tones here. See, he gets this, and you can see that kind of underlying orangish kind of tone, and he gets that in there. Now, I'm not going to do it quite as light. I'm going to leave some of this contrasting dark here. I'm going to push this edge off, soften this edge of him back off there like that, so that he stays a bit softer. Where I really want to put the interest in him is up in these lighter strokes. So I'm going to leave that gray. Matter of fact, I'll just put some of that gray into my brush here. And I just pinch wipe some of the extra out, and I'm just going to pick up some white with a little bit of this medium. And I'd like to flatten the brush just a bit, and I use this for the feathering strokes, little strokes here that I use, little taps up and around his beak here that puts in the smallest little detail feathers around him. But I like to tap some of these, and I'll reach right up into that black area there and tap and give that undulated, so it's not a smooth line. So you get kind of an undulated interest line right back in there. And normally on the little chickadee, you could build up his cheek just a bit more with some of that light. Now, if you touch too much or push too much, just back paint some back out, tap some out with some of those grays and stuff. And that works as well. We'll tap some of this back, right back out here like this. Lift up into that. See, you get that plane of those colors back and forth, and it just gives him a lot of interest. I don't try to ever copy the Chickadee perfect. I try to kind of find my way with each one. See, I like this. This is what I call the feather stroke. I touch and I lift off and drag just a little bit. And it takes those ever fine little lines here and it makes it look like these little feathers here like that. So we'll push some of that in and grab some of that right up and around here like that on him. Drag that edge a bit. Leave a bit of that broken color there. Take a bit of the siennas, work those in. Sometimes I'll touch it with my finger. Now, you can also just touch it with a larger brush. You know, work your larger brush back and forth in there. Just grab a bit of this. I like little touches like this. If I'm painting a lot of, you know, small details and stuff on the birds, I like to do lots of little touches. Little, and you can see, just give a little bit out into that background. Feathers and fluffs him up just a bit. So you can get all kinds of different looks. That's up to you. You know, I'm going to push a bit of this back, just a bit here. Right up there like that. That'll work. That looks pretty good. Let's take some of our sienna here. We'll add some of that medium, maybe just a touch of that blue into that here. And we'll work a bit of the sienna. Now I'm going to want to work some grays in here too. So let's get some of that gray. And you can see here it's not real bright and dark. It's kind of a grayish tone here, mottled grayish tone. So I do want to capture that. So I'm going to add some of my blues. That's going to be burnt sienna with some of the blues into it here. And we'll model that through. You can see how that grays that out, see? So I'll gray some of this, push some of this right up in through there so I get some of this modeling of the colors, which is what I want here. And so you get all that nice color, and I like a little bit more of that gray here. Maybe a few little feather marks there. It's kind of neat there. And yeah, and I do kind of like his eye. I was just looking at his eye. You know, do I need to do any more there? I think it's kind of nice. I'm going to take some of that burnt sienna kind of color and kind of sharpen up the back of his head here just a bit more. There, just like that. Looking at the edges. I'm an edge painter. I always watch my edges. You know, sometimes I tell you in a lot of the bird videos and stuff I do, I come back and back paint around the bird to bring him out just a little bit more. There's all different kinds of ways you can do that. I'm going to thin this out, this gray out a bit, and drop in, before I forget here, just the idea of some feet. I don't get too involved into the feet, not as much. Let's take a lighter color. Let's add just a bit more of our details, a bit more of the gray here, a bit of the gray and some white. And he has the little coverts, or top little coverings of his feathers here. And so I'm going to do it a couple ways. I'm going to pull back into this way. I'm not going to try to copy feather for feather, but I'm going to give the indication that those are there. And then I'll take some of my burnt sienna here, bit of the blue black into here, put that into the brush, and I'm going to paint back into that lift off right before the edge. And that gives that nice light little tip to those feathers there, see? So I flatten my brush out and just lift right off. And it creates a look of a feather that's pretty darn close to what you see there. See, you get that nice look of that feather, and you can see you get that look there. So I call it negative painting of the feathers. I do that a lot. So for example, I will take a lighter color here. That's got too much burnt sienna in it. If you need to clean your brush at all, just poke it into some extender and just wipe it out onto your paper towel. But you don't want to, or if you do, like I've told you before, if you do go in and rinse it in some water, you want to put it there, you want to make sure you poke it into that extender and work it out. Get that water out of your brush, replace it with extender. So everything here stays wet. And you can see all my background and everything here still all wet, see? So you just want to make sure that you keep that stuff wet, right? Let's take a bit of this gray and stuff here. We'll put some softer, bit of our grays and stuff. We'll put some softer little breast feathers here coming through there. Just the idea of those. He has a couple of more detailed ones coming down this front, so I'll put in just a bit of an idea of those. We'll take some of this light here. Let's get that lighter stroke. He has a heavier one right up here on the front of his primary flight feather here. And so what I do, it's the same thing I do with a lot of things. I put on too much and then I paint it out slightly to where I want it to be. Now, I just painted out too much. So I get the joy of doing it again here because I painted out too much. Well, that's okay. You know, but sometimes with a big commission painting, I'll go back and forth like this doing this because I work a different edge each time. And I'll go back and forth 2-3 times to create the look that I want that feather to have. You know, and so I paint too much and I paint it out. That's how I work it. That's what I like to work with. So I'm going to paint too much here. Okay. I'm going to put on too much into these light areas of this feather here. And then I'm going to push back into some of my grays. Let's put a little burnt sienna into that blue. Get some of these nice grays. And I'm going to come the other direction here like this and start to paint some of it out. First with like a medium color. Then let's go a little darker. A little more blue and burnt sienna here. Sometimes I'll add a little green or a little red violet. Let's push that in and just get some nice model colors there into those feathers there, see? Let's put some lighter, go back to our lighter color here, and we'll just model that around. These back ones on the other side, I won't do too much with. I'm just going to give the impressions of it. But again, I paint too much. I then go back and grab some gray, and I take some out. Take some out, leaving the shape of the feathers that you want that to have. Now he has a little bit lighter of a gray feather. I do want to kind of capture that right in here. That pulls back in like that. And then it has a bit of dark pulling the other way. There like that. And maybe a bit of the dark right here by the tip. So you see I can make a feather with all different kinds of colors and folding. So what I'm looking at is like this one that's right there, see? And just trying to capture, not perfectly, but just trying to capture some of that on him. And I don't think I'll do too much back out here anymore to the tail, maybe just a little bit more dark. We'll leave some of that. And I'll come back in, I'm just going to rinse out a bit of that heavy color with some of my extender here, and I'm going to come back with some pure white here and build maybe even little textured strokes here right up into this cheek area. Build this out in him, a few little taps. I like to tap for the small little feathers that go up and around his beak, and you know that just puts in so much nice movement and stuff around that area of his eye. And I like that. Maybe a lighter little breast stroke right there. Boom. A little feathering. You know, there's some little kind of feathers, and I like to drag a bit over the wing so it incorporates the wing and the body together there. Bit of this light pulled down here. It's kind of, I blur them together, do what I call incorporate the colors together. I don't blend. I like the colors to have their own, still their own kind of coloring. So I don't blend them together. I blur them. So I'm going to take some of this gray here, and I'm just going to pull down. And see, I lift off, and that gives that light little feathery edge. That's what I like with this brush. So I pull it in reverse. I don't pull from a tip down. I pull it in reverse. And it gives a nice look, I think, to the feathers. So I'll add some of this. Then I'm just going to take a bit of burnt sienna right along that edge, and then I'm just going to push those together like that so you get that nice blurry color. I like that. It could have a touch more darker burnt sienna. Burnt sienna, a little blue. Nice contrast stroke right up in there. Pull that out. I'll blur it. You could also use your small brush to blur those together. You know, put that little bit of contrast in there. I like that. Let's touch just a bit in there. Makes it look like you know what you're doing. You get that contrast in. There, like that. That looks pretty good. He's got a pretty good look to him. And before I decide, do I need to do any more to him? See, I like that little lost edge back there. And, you know, you bring in the drama up here into the front of it. Now, you could soften some of this back here with a lighter medium tone gray. You can drop a bit of that in. You know, I kind of like the contrast, especially of the chickadee, or the light and dark, because that's what he has. But you can do that. And sometimes I'll take even a lighter blue stroke and stroke just a few little bits of that into him and add that other, even you see how you can see it sparks him up a bit. And I'll do that sometimes in areas that are real dark, you know, on the shadow side there. So you use a cool color, a cool blue or cool violet. So if you put him with a lot of violet flowers, you touch a little bit of violet into him as well. And on that cool, you know, on that cooler shadow side. Okay, let's go back to a bigger brush, old brush. This is an old favorite. You know, I always tell, so when I was a younger painter, well, for many years, I always thought new brushes, new brushes. And now I'm telling everybody, hey, you know, when you, after a couple of years, you wear out a fusion brush, if you start to wear it out, don't ever get rid of it. That makes the most beautiful flowers. You never get rid of your other brushes because there's always something that you can do with them. But let's come in here. And I was thinking kind of blue-gray here, kind of flowers. A softer blue-gray that'll go with here. Maybe a blue to a blue-violet. So I'll add some quinacridone, some phthalo, and then I'll tone it with some of the burnt sienna. This will also give nice harmony here for the chickadee as well. But I'm going to take this, and let's just look at this. Blue-gray, we'll go blue-gray to a white. And so so the blue-gray is a complement here to the colors that are showing up on the chickadee here. And let's just add one that's going to come down this way here. A few other little strokes of those colors. We'll do them lighter here in just a minute. But we'll just use this color, change it up a bit, add a little more violet or something to it so the color changes. You know, you don't want to paint too long. I always say don't paint too long in the same color. Change them. Let's thin this out because I'm going to go back here towards the background. Let's thin this out and just push some of that color back here. And loose and thin. I'm just looking for the color coming back there. So it's thinner. Okay, let's build this lighter grayer. And we'll head towards a little bit of the light. We'll put in some more specific edges here to these little flowers. Now, that's going to be pretty, but it's going to be a little dull. So I'm going to take and I'm going to spark these flowers with just a bit of violet color. Just push it right into them, model them up a bit more here. Let's also put in towards the center some of our chickadee color here, where we would have some centers and stuff, some chickadee color. So you see, a lot of the stuff that I do is all dictated by color more than anything else, okay? So I'm going to work this in. Let's get some of these grays. Let's get just a bit of the violets with that. So rather than using white that goes with it, we'll kick it over to the violet side. Now see, that's a little prettier here. So we'll go blue to this violet white. Tone the blue-gray to this violet white. Let's push in and out. That incorporates the petals into the center of the flower. Okay. Push in and out. Change the color a little bit, maybe a little bit more blue, so the next flower isn't exactly the same color. And that is important. Did you hear me? Change colors. Constantly change color. Don't paint too long in the same color because your flowers will all become the same. A slight little change. Now see, just a little bit more blue really makes a difference into that flower. See? Really makes a prettier difference in that flower. Let's take some of that right up here. Let's just add a bit of this right out here as an idea. As it comes back here, let's even get a little lighter and some of the gray from our background back here. Let's just give an idea. that that's going to be a flower back there. Not a front flower, it's just a nice little back flower back there. Let's come back over here. We'll get a little bit more of our grays, slightly different. Blues, colors, violets. Work that in. And sometimes I pull in, sometimes I'll pull out. I pull out usually to give a lost edge, and I pull in usually to give more of an edge. So right here, I'm an edge painter. You've heard me say that hundreds of times. I paint the edges of stuff. I look for the edges. That's what I look for, edges. And softening and stuff like that. And that's what I look for. And that's just going to be a little bit softer here. Let's take this and push this in and out. Here. There we go. Now let's build a little bit more light. We don't want to go all the way to pure white because that's on the Chickadee. But I can come pretty darn close here with some of these flowers here. So, but I'm in my mind, I'm saying not as white as the Chickadee. I don't want that white. You can see it's not quite as white. That's the whitest color here. So keep that in mind because that Chickadee is our goal of this painting, right? And let's just blur up some of these little flowers here. Just get some nice, maybe an edge or two right here onto this one. That just kind of let this one kind of take your eye around to the lost edges to the other side here. Blur that just a bit there. And we'll push a little burnt sienna, more burnt sienna into those centers there. Let's push a little bit into there. And you can also take any kinds of yellows are pretty to add up in here as well. Let's take a real soft, we'll soften out this burnt sienna with some of our grays. Just push a bit of it back into there. You just want to, and you know, when you're painting lost or what I call the ghost flowers back here, you just want an indication of the color, but you don't want it as strong as what you had here. Now, the center here can go as strong as what you see here. And I could go quite dark because I'm not going to go as dark as the darkest color in the painting, which is going to be on the Chickadee. So, but I can go pretty dark there to get some more interest into that, into the centers there. And the way in which I love to do centers is I just pick up a bit of my yellow oxide on the corner of my brush, and I just start tapping, letting it run off as I come over here to the other side. So I start on the side that's actually closest to the Chickadee, and then I run off, and we'll use just a little bit out here, just so we say we did it. Side closest to Chickadee, and then just lift the pressure, just let the color run off. Okay. Then I'll come back a little Darulite, a little Hansa together, and I'll tap in a little lighter, a little heavier there, Dave. A little bit heavier, right up onto that side there, and that gives a nice, especially on this where I don't have I don't have hardly any yellow into the, only a little bit into the burnt sienna mix into that Chickadee. This gives almost a nice little, its own little color. Now just a touch of this back here, not too much, just a little bit to say you did it, see, and that makes a beautiful little ghost flower back there, right? Now we can take some of this color, just soft little gray, and we can push this around, soft little lights here, just kind of push this around into movement here. We don't need too much. You see me do a lot of ghost flowers where I just push in some movement. I don't need to do a whole bunch of stuff. We'll gray this way down and just enough to say we did a few things there. Okay, we don't need that much. Now, I lost just a few of my beautiful, kind of covered them up. Don't you just hate that though? Sometimes, you know, you just like, wow, I love that area, and then you've overpainted it and covered it up and you lost it. this original burnt burnt sienna and that pine green. So I just go back and I'm going to add a few marks of that back into here. I love that kind of mottled, that hits of color there, and I'll push those together, lose the edges there right into each other there, push those here like that so I get some of that coloring. I like that. Now I originally had him kind of standing on a branch that was kind of going through like that, so I'm going to do that, give the indication of that branch coming through there like that, and we'll let it just go ghost and lost back there here. Just a bit of that nice little thrust line. It's a little too straight, so we just take your paper towel and say goodbye. Here, let's put a bit of a darker color. Maybe thin it out. As I go to the back, I get away from the open medium and I go more to the extender, so my colors become thinner, more transparent here. And you can mix the two together like I showed you before. You can mix the two, the open medium and your the other colors. You can mix them together, open medium and your extender, I mean. Again, I'm going to put a softer little, more of a leaf shape there. Here, nice and soft. Sometimes if I'm near that center of interest, I'll put a little shadow or a little vein line into that to give it a little more drama. Sometimes I'll make nice light colored leaves. I don't think I'm going to do that with this. I'm going to leave some of this just nice streaky colors through here. I've always liked burnt sienna and the green, and burnt sienna, green, and yellow oxide working together. That burnt sienna and yellow oxide and stuff, because the yellow oxide makes pretty colors in there too. See, there's beautiful little colors that come right up in there, and yeah, they just put a bit of the light, like maybe there's something else back there. There's softens that all out. Now, I'm going to kick this up a little bit more contrast with just a touch of that quinacridone right into these flowers here. See, just push that in. So I always decide this towards the end. Do I want to have a little bit more? And you can go touch a bit of that quinacridone here and there on the chickadee as well if you want. Just a little bit. See how this... Now sometimes I will soften that by just taking some light color, some of my lighter color, and do what I call incorporate it. Drag the light color over the edge of that, and what it does is it softens it. See how it softens it into the flower. So, and you can make all kinds of really pretty flowers, guys, just by painting these a few times. Let's come back with a little bit of that quinacridone, tiny bit more white, and hit these edges just a bit more. See, it puts in, so if you feel like, well, maybe that one's a little bit too much the same, a little too flat, just hit a little more light, slightly different color, and push in a slightly, different little bit of color into it. This one has a bit more of the quinacridone into it. And, draw that around. And there's just all kinds of fun ways. But remember, this is a painting of the chickadee, so don't get your flowers too beautiful. Chickadee's supposed to be the best. But let's just push a little bit of that in and out, right up in there. I like those together. And so what I'll do sometimes is just hit in a few areas here onto the bird, a bit of those, and especially like into some of these cool shadows, a bit of that violet. See, and it just harmonizes him into the painting there. It's kind of a neat way. Now, I do like this line right up through here in this, so I think I'm going to build out, find the right value here, down around a 7 or so. Build out this one, so it's not like super light, but I'll build the shape of these petals a bit more here, bringing the viewer's eye up through here like that. I believe in journeys. You're an artist, you create visual journeys, through the painting. That's what I like to create. Here, push just a bit of that there. Lose that edge just a bit. So you see a touch more of the petal. And that's kind of pretty, kind of different, kind of pretty. Now this stops a little bit back here, so it's kind of like, well, I'm gonna head back up to some of my blues into this, soft grays, violets, and maybe just put in a few ideas back here of other things. And sometimes I'll just push the color in like that and leave it. Sometimes I will, there's some artists that, leave a big expanse and they'll come back out and hit something right out here like it's another flower, kind of showing back up, coming back up towards the front again a little bit. And I do like that as well. It's yours. You can do whatever you want here. Just give the idea of something there. Movement into it. Movement into the backgrounds. Little things going on here. And it creates more visual depth to it. Now, the question becomes now, do I want to create just a couple of hits of the lighter green? And I think I might. I like the Hansa and the pine green. We'll get some white. We'll add a bit of our violet in here. See how that grayed it down immediately? Look at the difference between the two. So I'll watch this here, and that just grays it down. That puts a softer color in here. That allows me to hit a couple areas here, like their little leaves and stuff like that in there. Maybe a bit more green in there. And I don't have to, you don't have to make perfect leaves. See, you just need to color. More than anything else, you need to color a nice, slightly brighter color. Go between your violet, the lighter green, and some of your pine green here. Some of the grayed green here. Some of this nice gray it down like this. See, that's pretty greens out here. See how much softer? The violets and the greens are beautiful colors to play in and out each other. You can use a little yellow oxide. Push in a little bit different green here. Just out like that. Just little touches of it. That'd be a good color to put a little hit of that color right out there so the color travels through. So you have a nice bird here that has all these lost little edges. Your eye comes into here on him. I think his eye is dark enough. It's giving him enough contrast and stuff. So, yeah, I think that'll be, it's a nice little one there. We did that in just over 50 minutes, I guess it's there. I didn't turn on my shot clock, so I can't tell exactly. I'm just guessing off of the timer there. But anyway, I hope you enjoy that. That's fun. It all stays wet. Blur the stuff together. Lost flowers, ghost flowers are kind of fun. Work the two different kinds of brushes. Your detail brush here. You can make it more painterly. Like I say, go over and watch that titmouse one, and where I paint the whole bird with the number 4. And you'll see some of that in the bird challenges, the 12 birds I did in the challenge. I did some more painterly, and then some very, very detailed. And so you can see the differences in between and what the brushes can do, and try them. And that's your job, is to get all these influences from all of us artists out there, and you put them all up into here and put out your technique or way that you like to do things, okay? All right. So if you enjoy that, make sure you click like. Now, I'm also starting up a poll on there because I get a lot of requests for a lot of things. And, the flower videos that I do are the most popular. And we want to give you guys what it is that you want to see. And so whenever we put on, like I paint the landscapes and I do a lot of stuff, and we've had some requests for me to do portraits like the little girl and stuff that's back there. But sometimes I'll put some of that stuff on there, and then it doesn't do very well because a lot of you like the flowers. So, we're trying to give it what you want, but if we put up a video and it doesn't get, and this is the way it is, guys, if we put up a video and it doesn't get very much likes on it, you don't go there and you don't click likes and you don't watch it, it lowers our ratings of our YouTube, and then YouTube doesn't show it to anybody. And so it's kind of like we have to do a balancing act between what you want to see and then what everyone is clicking like on, so that we can keep our channel, so that YouTube doesn't throw us away, basically, so we keep our channel very active. So if you want to see stuff, make sure you click the like on it, make sure you subscribe to the channel, And make sure you hit it into the comments, and then in the community tab I'll be putting up some polls. What do you want to see? And we'll get you guys what you want with the painting. So we still have a lot of Alla Prima mountains and stuff like that coming with the with the Alla Prima series that we're going to be doing all this year and stuff. But oh, and one last thing. I know I'm talking a lot. Sorry. One last thing. We have another channel that we've always had, and it has like 11,000 subscribers or whatever it is. It's called the Paint It Simply channel. And I was talking with my daughter, who runs the channels for us, and we were thinking about putting more beginning lessons over there onto that Paint It Simply channel. So if you haven't gone over there, make sure you go over there, subscribe to that channel. We're going to put beginning lessons, beginning roses, beginning stuff, beginning color mixing, all that kind of stuff over there. That's what we were talking about on our way out here to Sydney, and we would like to do that. We're just trying to give you guys what it is that you want to see. Okay, and help you along your artistic journeys. Okay, all right. So go click like, make sure you subscribe, and I'll see you on the next one in just a few days.